Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. Today we're going to look at the new Warhammer Underworld Beastgrave box. Now, I'm just going to pop this open because I haven't even opened it myself yet to see what's inside, so you are going to witness this while I do it too. Boards, rules, models. Oh yeah, let's take a look at those, and there's cards and junk, but nobody cares about those. That's what we want, right? Models. So let's take a look at the new warbands. Each warband, how many figures? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this sprue, and you have the cool centaur. These are these crazy beast elves. I'm quite curious how they're going to go together. I was very concerned that we're going to have lots of spindly bits everywhere that are a pain in the butt to attach, but it doesn't look too bad. They are pre-colored, so if you're one of those people that just doesn't like to paint your stuff, it's okay, I forgive you. But yeah, seriously, paint your junk. Alright, and then we have the Beastman sprue. So I personally am really happy that GW decided to do something different and not have Stormcast and not have the usuals at all. Kudos to them in that regard. So it looks like what we have, 3, 4 regular size and then 2 larger bases. Sadly, no Minotaurs. I was hoping for some Minotaurs, but it doesn't look like we're going to get any. Oh well, not yet at least, right? Anyway, I'm going to start with the Elves. Let's get these guys cut out and let's take a closer look at what is included here. So let's start off with the most interesting figure of the set, the Centaur. He's probably a good half of all the parts right alone for the Elf faction of the box. He's at least 11 parts here. You have the 2 halves of the body, obviously. You have some skirt armor. You have the main torso, which has that really cool looking stag-like, drone-like helmet. Well, you're going to say it's more wood elf, but whatever. I think of drones when I see those. And then we have a fabulous mane of hair. His actual shield. His spear. And then his base. I gotta say, the elf bases are quite varied in what they've got all over them. And you'll notice that there's a big empty space there. I'm not sure what goes there, whether a foot. He actually has a little piece of leaves that pop up here, like that. Let's pop him together and see what he looks like. And our centaur here is all finished up. I gotta say, it was a little challenging trying to get everything pushed into place, especially with the arms and his spear just being ever so precariously thin, and trying to get everything in there without breaking it was kind of a challenge, but it's done. So I'm quite happy with it. Bow's not bad. I don't like the only on 1 foot, but you know what? GW seems to know what they're doing in terms of putting these plastic kits together engineering-wise, so I'm not going to worry too much. It's just, you know, if you don't have adequate transportation and padding, carrying this stuff around, it is very susceptible to getting broken. In case you are curious about how tall he is, using a typical human as an example, his base is a little bit smaller than a typical cavalry base, but he does look like he is about the size of a regular cavalry model. I'm going to go ahead and grab the rest of the elven crew here, and we'll get them all put together, and we'll take a look at how they are. So we went ahead and cut off all the parts for the rest of the crew. Here we have the archer model. And as you can see, not a whole lot of parts to worry about. The main body, the extra leg, detailed base with just a single contact point. But again, he is standing on those ferns there. And then the quiver to go along with the bow. That's the archer model. Here we have the huntsman style. I don't know what the heck this is supposed to be, if it's kind of a chakram or something. Oh, it's a trident. I didn't realize he's got the half there behind him. All right, well, fair enough. He is probably the simplest one of the simplest ones, if I can figure out how he's supposed to go together there. Okay, so he's going to have his horned toot, a knife at his belt, and then his pole arm of some sort. We have right here, we have the archer. Oh, this is, I don't know, this guy reminds me of a war dancer, and I don't know why. I think it's just the pose. He's kind of leaping over the foliage of the forest there, and he's got a very I don't know what other way to describe it other than a war dancer looking elvish blade. The hair, I think it's the hair as well. And again, just a single contact point, and they all have very different bases. We'll look at those a little bit later. And finally, the lion. The lion consists of 2 parts. He was one of those early community previews, and he's got a swampy base with flowers and goodies around it. So this shouldn't take us too long to put them together. Everything's snap fit, and like I've said in many of these other Warhammer Underworlds videos, I'm not going to bother paint them. I'm not going to bother gluing them for the most part. They really don't need it, and they go together pretty quickly. So give me a sec here. We'll put them together, and I'll show you what they look like. So we put them all together now. We'll start off with the huntsman here, tooting his horn. What's interesting is his dagger actually holds everything together, and he might actually do some good with some glue there. I'm going to push it tighter than I did. But yeah, it's interesting. This plugs in all the way. Not often you see those items. This pose is kind of static, I thought, but only because of some of the other poses. So like my war dancer looking dude, and again, I think the pose is part of the reason why I feel very inspired by a war dancer. He's just like all over the place. I really like that though. That's really cool. To me, this is what a 3D model really is all about. He's just in every direction possible. Obviously, I didn't push it down all the way. For push fit models, these guys were a really tight fit. I mean, really tight. It was a chore trying to get everything pushed in without destroying it. Like our lion friend here, who was just the 2 pieces, really trying to get him on that base was quite challenging. It felt like I was going to end up breaking something almost. There's our lion, and finally we have our archer, who seems to be a female. I'm thinking it's female. It looks like it has breasts, but I can't really tell. I mean, it is a weird cloven-hooved, mohawked elf thing. Beast elf, for lack of better words. But again, much like our quasi-war dancer friend here, just the pose is really cool and dynamic, just dashing over the leaf of the plant there and just firing off those arrows. And much like this guy, her quiver actually kind of pegs everything in together and keeps it all in one piece. So an interesting looking warband. I mean, that's to say for sure. And I mean, you've got just a lot of varied sculpts, poses, and looks to them. I mean, they're really all over the place, and I really like that. It reminds me kind of Molog's Mob, but to a better degree, because Molog's Mob, obviously a big Molog and then all the little guys everywhere, but these guys are just kind of really dynamic and really just all over the place. I wish that Yothari's Guardians or whatever, our Sylvaneth tree people group, were a little bit more like this kind of pose. I thought they were a bit more static, especially after looking at these guys. But with that said, let's take a look now at our Beastmen portion of the box, because that, to me, honestly, that was what I was more interested in. But the more I look at these guys and the more I just check out these sculpts, the more I can't help but admire them. And I do look forward to actually painting them, surprisingly. But let's take a look at all the Beastmen models and we'll go from there. So for the Beastmen, I'm going to start off with the 2 larger ones. These guys are on 32mm bases, and I didn't mention it, but the Elves all were on 25s, with the exception of the Lion, who's on the 20mm base, and then the Centaur. But these are my 32mm bases, and that is the Bestigor looking dude, who is probably the most complicated of the crew, considering he's got 2 halves of his body, and then his head is 2 separate parts, the face and the horns. And then we have the Bray Shaman styled guy, who is also 2 halves for the body, 1 head, and 1 really fancy staff. Getting this staff clipped off was a bit of a challenge to make sure I didn't destroy those little claws or teeth or whatever there in the middle, because there was a connecting point right between that strap there. So be careful trying to remove that. I'm going to get these 2 built, and then we'll move on to the Ungors. Here's our 2 Gors. Here we'll start off with the Shaman. And pretty nice. A little bit of a paunch, but, you know, he's magic user type. I'm not even sure if he uses magic. I'm assuming he uses magic dice. I haven't bothered to even pop the cards yet. I'm too busy building the models. Looks good. Not as cool as the typical Bray Shaman, whatever you want to call him. And then we have our champion Bestigor type. I really like him. I don't own any GW Beastmen anymore. Got plenty of other companies, but it's been a while. I never was a fan of the plastics. And this guy, he looks cool. He definitely looks cool. Nice little scenic base as well. Pairs nicely with his Brayan buddy. Grabbing an elf just for size reference. Our Fancy Pants Dancer Man. Okay, good size. And why don't we move on then to the Ungors themselves, since we got a few more of those guys. So for our Ungors, we have 4 of them total. We have 2 with spears, which you can see here. And then we have 2 archer ones. Most of them consist of about 2 or 3 parts. One with a crossbow. I think that's... has he got a crossbow? No, it's a bow and arrow. I just can't tell the difference. Okay. Bows and arrows and spears. So they have a little bit more model-wise than the elves, but, you know, they're Ungors. They're crappy. So we'll see how they perform. Hopefully better than some of the other Chaos troops have. Let's get these guys built and see what they look like, though. Alright, we got our 2 close combat Ungors done, and I gotta say I like the one on the left here, or at least my left, a little bit more. I like how he's kind of just, you know, trotting through the underbrush there. Definitely a lot more interesting looking than the original plastic Ungors by any stretch of the imagination. These guys just, they look more menacing, they look more interesting, they've got more fur. They're just all around more nice models. So those are the close combat ones. Pretty simple construction as well. And here are our ranged guys. See, he's got a little bit of detail. Yeah, you can't knock any of these for the amount of detail in them. This guy was kind of a pain to get off the sprue without damaging it, and I still need to go back and really clean them up. Other thing is, because of their legs, getting them on the bases is going to be kind of a one-time thing. If you push them in all the way, they're not going to come off. Then again, if you're just looking to play the game straight up as is, I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. If you want to paint it like I do, you probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to suffer through it for you guys just so you get a better look at it. So here are all of our Ungors, and let's get their boss dudes. There's a bit of a size discrepancy going on here. They're on, what are they, on 20s? They are. The Ungors are on 20mm bases as opposed to the 32s that their Brayan buddies are on. So getting everybody on screen. Obviously, if you're interested in the game, I think any of the starters are going to be a good value. So far, at least, prior to this release of Beastgrave, you know, with Night Vault and Shadespire, I thought that the warbands included were pretty vanilla, but this time around, at least just visually even, these guys have a lot more going on. Number 1, they're not Stormcasts. Number 2, they're not Chaos. Number 3, they're not Undead. They're factions that we don't see very often, and I mean, these guys are just doing who knows what with their weird cloven hoof. It's beast on beast action here, so if you're into the beastiness, I'm not going to make a bestiality joke, sorry. It's definitely something new and different, which is what I like to, you know, get involved with painting wise. And I've had a lot of fun. I got to say, Underworlds has hit the table pretty regularly. Unfortunately, I am starting to lag behind in terms of getting everybody painted and tried out. I still haven't tried out the Eyes of the Nine or the Godsworn Hunt, which have both been sitting painted for months now. But hopefully we'll get these guys on the table and give them a spin soon. I did manage to get a hold of the terrain as well for Beastgrave, and we'll be putting that up there as well. But, I mean, really, you get a lot of bang for your buck, which is something that's kind of odd considering GW's pricing practices these days, especially like with those new releases like Blood of the Phoenix, which is, you know, close to $200-something for not a whole lot of models. I mean, half of that, and for like $50, you get the board, you get all the cards, you get at least, I don't know if I can count here, how many models are we looking at? 3 elves, 5, you know, about 11 models. That sounds right, doesn't it? I hope so. I can't count. Yeah, 11. You know, Obviously, there's no tanks or super special characters, but everybody's a unique sculpt. Everybody's got a custom base. Everybody's push fit. Everybody's unique. And it's still just a fraction of the cost. And, you know, later on, they'll probably release the warbands themselves, minus the cards, for like 20, 30 bucks as well. So I don't get the pricing, but you can't go wrong with these sets. I'm hoping to get a hold of Dreadfane as well, since it has some interesting stuff going on with the whole hazards and all that. And I hope to see something like that show up in regular Warhammer Underworlds soon as well, even if it's a separate release. But I look forward to seeing what this new season has to offer, because we're running out of a lot of the staple, tried and true stuff from all the previous ones. Crossing fingers for Seraphon and Ogres. We'll see how that goes. With that said, hopefully you found this interesting, helpful, and entertaining. And I am High Lord Tamberlane, and this is Obscurities and Miniatures, and I'll see you all later. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.